And we are live with another edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. I am one of your co-hosts, Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside, as always, by my co-host Andrew Johnson. And Johnson, I know you've been waiting for this one. It's finally time to preview the upcoming 2025-2026 college basketball season. Tip-off just happened as of yesterday. The first games of the season have commenced. And now we're going to look into more in-depth detail as to what teams we think will win respective conferences, what player we think will win the Wooden Award, what teams we think will make it to the Final Four, what teams will make it to the National Championship. And I think we might give our National Championship picks as well. Not entirely sure if we're going to go there or not. But nonetheless, Johnson, it's one of our favorite sports that you and I always like to watch and partake in talking discussion. And we get to do it here tonight.
Yeah, it's definitely my favorite sport by far, even though we don't cover it that much, because football is king in this country, and you have to remember that. But it's my favorite sport because of the unpredictability you have each and every single year. You have Cinderellas, and I guess with NIL, it may be going away, but you're seeing some guys like the star of Quinnipiac staying. He's foregoing all that NIL money because he believes in loyalty. So I believe once the money begins to dry up in the next year or so, you'll see those players become more and more loyal to those schools, especially if they have alumni that can afford to help out with only retaining a couple players. So uh, I'm looking forward to this. And Nick, I'm going to let you start us off.
Yeah, I think the best way to start off is we'll preview some of the top conferences coming up this season. And of course, the quote unquote Power Four that we talk about always with college football, while also including, of course, the conference that we're synonymous with, the Big East. So let's start off in the ACC, Johnson. Looking at this conference going into the season, Duke right now is the betting favorite to be the ACC champion, despite obviously losing Cooper Flagg last season. This is a team that's going into the year with a lot of expectations once again. And the biggest reason why they have those expectations is because of their incoming class that they bring into the season. Of course, star freshmen Caden and Cameron Boozer both coming into this team. Obviously, the family heritage from their father. Now they get to be on this young team that's bringing back guys like Caleb Foster, Isaiah Evans, to know from their key returning players from last season. They did lose a lot, though, obviously, going into this season. I mentioned Flagg, also Con Knipple and Tyrese Proctor. They lost this past season. But looking at this team, Johnson, it looks like they're obviously a team to be threatened with in the ACC. You expect both boozers to really show out throughout the entire season and be the reason why this Duke team can repeat as the ACC champs.
Yeah, definitely the favorites, but don't sleep on Louisville, Nick. They
That's
got
true.
some great players, right behind them. They have Mikal Brown. They've got Isaac McNeely, the big transfer from Virginia. He's been really great over the last couple of years. Now he's going to bring that talent to Louisville. Then they say Kenai Roofs is going to be there. So there's a lot of continuity of this roster. There's a lot
They
of
bring
guys
back
on last year's
Headley
very
and Pryor as
successful.
well.
Yeah. There's a lot of guys that were on last year's roster, and they're going to be on this year's roster again. So there's a lot of continuity here, and I wouldn't really count them out. Now, for the rest of the ACC,
I think there's only like two other
uh,
teams where I'm like maybe, but that's about it.
yeah,
And
because
the
there
only
really is a
reason,
large drop off after Duke and Louisville. It's kind of the same the Big
yeah,
East, though.
right. I think like you're looking at like teams like North Carolina, where obviously the name and recognition of that program is something. They do bring back Trimble from last season. That's really the biggest guy they bring back from last year. A lot of new incoming players. They lost a lot of players as well. Guys like RJ Davis, Ian Jackson, Elliot Cadeau. Like they lost a lot of players from this previous season. And they're one of two teams that I look at like maybe they're in that second tier of the ACC with a team like NC State, who I think a lot of people are kind of high on as maybe a potential sleeper in this conference going into the season. But I agree with you. I think it's realistically comes down to Duke or Louisville being the two teams in this conference to compete for this conference title at the end of the day and get the job done. So who out of the two do you have winning the conference? I know we haven't really talked about the entirety of the conference, but I think we both agree.
Yeah,
Teams like
I think it's
Clemson,
Duke conference to lose. I
yeah,
think it's Duke's the conference to lose. Like
like
what we can talk
yeah,
about is, and I think this is gonna be a little fun. We can guess the amount of NCAA tournament teams this conference gets.
yeah, we can do that.
So I think the four locks are going to be Duke, Louisville, NC State, North Carolina. These are
Okay.
four teams that all should make the NCAA tournament, or at least favor to make it right now. And I think Clemson is the only other team that's kind of on the outside looking in right now. So I would say 4 to 5 for ACC. I would say 4 to 5 would be kind of their baseline. Like if they get less than four, there's a problem. And I would expect them to kind of get five in because it's the ACC. And I would say their absolute ceiling is probably 7 teams. I can
Yeah.
maybe see Virginia and maybe Miami sneaking in there, but the rest
I
of the
actually think
ACC is terrible. I mean,
I
it's
think
it's bottom
SMU
tier.
is a team to maybe look out for this upcoming season. They bring back Boopy Miller from last year, averaging 13 points a game. Uh, I'm going to butcher the name, Samet Ujatoglu. I think I tried the best I could with that name, but averaged 10 and 6 last year for the Mustangs team. And they bring in, Jermaine O'Neal Jr. is a nice, fun name for the old heads for basketball. They bring him in as one of the new incoming freshmen, a big incoming freshman class, as well as a couple of transfers as well for this team. So I think SMU could be maybe a sleeper team to maybe make the tournament from this conference. I do agree with you on Duke and Louisville and NC State being those tournament teams. North Carolina, I'm still on the iffy side with them.
Is it because of
I
Hubert Davis?
I think it's because of Davis, but like I mentioned earlier, they lost so much talent from last year's team, and that team barely did enough just to make the tournament. So it's like I don't know how to feel about them right now at this point at this and going into the season. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't make the tournament entirely. Um, if I had to pick a fourth team of non North Carolina, I'd really do like what SMU brings to the table for the upcoming season. So I do agree. I think at most this conference maybe gets five. I don't even think it's seven. I think at most it's five
I mean,
teams.
I'm thinking absolute ceiling at 7 because here's the thing,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we're gonna talk about these next two conferences in a second here. Let's talk about the Big 12, right? The Big
I also
12,
forgot to mention Kai and Anthony, Carmelo's son
yeah,
at Syracuse.
yeah, playing
Can't
at
forget about
Q's.
that. Nice
Yeah.
storyline going into the year.
Listen, he'll
But
be
go
the
ahead.
focal point of the offense there, and he'll probably transfer out in a year, unfortunately, because Syracuse is no
No,
longer what
they're
it used to
they're
be.
they're in a really bad spot. But yeah, let's go to the Big 12.
So the Big 12 absolutely loaded with talent. As you can see last night, Arizona just took down the reigning defending national champions Florida,
Yeah,
and Arizona's not even supposed to be the best team in this conference. It's supposed to be maybe the third or fourth best team in this conference. So with that being said, Nick, who do you have win the Big 12? And we're going to go into our analysis in a little bit here.
I've been back and forth on this one. I'm gonna lean towards the team that I know that I think is going to be getting there at the end of the day. I think it's going to be Houston. They just bring back so much talent from that team last year that made it to the Final Four, was really close to playing for a national championship as well. You bring back Sharp, you bring back Uzan, you bring back a lot of these star players. The biggest loss, of course, is LJ Cryer. But I really think that this team still is bringing in a lot of great players from not only last season's team, but they're bringing in a lot of big incoming freshmen as well. I think it's really not. I think it's really tough to pick against Kelvin Sampson in this team. The only team that realistically, in my opinion, that can contend with Houston for that top crown. Maybe you agree with me, and maybe you don't. I think it's BYU though, because BYU I think
So
has a really good
I
incoming
am
class.
so glad you mentioned BYU. And this is why I'm going to hop off the BYU train, and I'm actually going to pick Kansas, and I'll give you my reasoning
Oh,
why.
Kansas, okay.
So AJ, I'm going to butcher his name. I've heard it a million times. I've
Dipensa,
seen it a million times.
I believe.
But thank you. Uh, he looked okay against Villanova last night. He didn't look like he was a world leader, but he didn't look like he didn't belong out there either. Free throw shooting was horrendous last night. But his overall game, his defense, his scoring, he did a pretty good job. With that being said, I think I'm going to take Kansas because they have a better star freshman in Darren Peterson here.
Yep.
I think he's going to be a better player long term. I think the team is built better around him. He is a 6'6" point guard, true point guard at that. And they have a more well-rounded team built around them. He looked okay handling the ball for his first game as a collegiate athlete. Again, it was against Green Bay, so I'm not really going to
Overhype it, but yeah.
overhype it right now, right? But they bring back a lot of guys. They have Rosario back from. They have Cole Rosario, big name. They have I'm gonna butcher this. Flory Badunga, who comes back from last year, who was pretty good last year, especially towards the end. He got a lot better, and all roads lead to Kansas, especially to get through the Big 12 title game. And I think if they're gonna be playing in Kansas, they'll be a lot better, especially towards the end of the year. Now, this is where it's going to get kind of crazy. The Big 12 probably is projected to have right now. I think if you had to like really put my feet to the fire,
I think there's 6 guaranteed
I think
teams.
there's six. I think there's seven guaranteed teams in the Big 12.
Okay.
And tell me when you stop disagreeing with me. Houston,
Yep.
Arizona,
Yep.
Iowa State.
Mhm.
That's very Texas Tech is four. BYU is five. Kansas is six.
Yep.
Baylor seven.
I can get behind Baylor. I can get behind that.
And I think, and yes, every single year, the Big 12 really starts overhyped. Like you have a team, and this is gonna be perfect because TCU last night, who was supposed to be a middle of a pack Big 12 team, they were supposed to be before last night in the West Virginia, Kansas State kind of center of the conference. So they were supposed to be better than half the conference. They're supposed to be better than Kansas State, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, UCF, Arizona State, Utah, Colorado, etc. But right below Cincinnati, which is probably another team that's going to make the tournament. If enough of these teams towards the bottom of the Big 12 end up losing to cupcakes, it's going to ruin the entire flow of the conference when it comes time for analytics because I hated this every single year and I complain about it all the time. They have these ridiculous rankings preseason because we're not going to get any real analytics until January, until you enter at least a little bit of conference play and you play the non-conference, your entire non-conference that is. And every single time in the preseason rankings for all the Big 12 teams, like like eight of them are ranked in the top 30, and then like the next seven of them are ranked between 60 to 80. So, and then they play these BS non-conference games, and they are supposed to beat up on these teams. Like for example, TCU's next couple games, they're playing St. Francis and Lamar, and they start with New Orleans. Like they're not going to play real teams. They're going to play Incarnate Word, Oral Roberts, Florida A&M, Jackson State. It's the Mike Anderson special when it comes to scheduling, and they're going to play two big non-conference games against Michigan and Florida, both which were not favored to win because they're both Michigan and Florida, both NCAA champions, caliber teams. And then the non-conference team, the big non-conference teams against Notre Dame, which is like the ACC is like whatever, like they'll beat Notre Dame at home, and then
Right.
they can play North Texas away. So like this isn't a really great schedule, and the idea is you're supposed to rack up these wins, and you keep your conference rank, and then by the time you get to February, oh look, winning at TCU, they're ranked 72. Oh, that's a quad one win on the road. Like, and it's just this BS each year. So I'm gonna hope, and this is gonna sound toxic, but this finally backfires on this conference. I'm gonna root so hard against the Big 12 and the SEC this year because they have this. Because it's not. It's like these are new conferences when it comes to college basketball superiority. Like the Big 12 is new in general, but the SEC is a football conference, and now they think they run college basketball because they had
Yeah.
a really good year.
Yeah, yeah. I was just saying they had a really good
So
season last year.
I'm really rooting against them. I hope the ACC absolutely kicks the living hell out of these two conferences, along with the Big East and the Big Ten. The Big Ten is a legitimate conference that has great college basketball teams, and the bottom of the conference is ranked properly. And we'll go into the Big Ten in a little bit, but I'm done on my Big 12 rant right over here, Nick. I'm gonna take up too much time, but I think you can agree that the Big 12 is going to have at least six, if not seven teams
Yeah.
in the tournament right now.
I think at the very most 7 for this conference. I think we both agree 6 is the number they should have at least. And then I think it's really a battle between Cincinnati and Baylor for that 7th spot that could make it. I'll lean more towards Baylor because they have the lineage, of course, them winning a national championship a couple of years ago. So they have the experience prior. They lost a lot of players from last year's team, so they have a whole new incoming class going into the season of transfers and freshmen. So we'll see what they do. I would lean towards them over Cincinnati just a little bit, being that 7th team. Um, but yeah, I think it's a really close and competitive race because You also talk about Texas Tech, a team that I think needs to be discussed for a second. I mean, they bring back arguably the best player, one of the best players in the entire nation from last year, in JT Toppin, who easily could be a Wooden Award, finalist at the end of the season. Averaged over 18 points a game last year, almost a double double by himself. And now with them losing a lot of scoring from last year, it's very possible he averages 20 and 10 for this team the upcoming season and maybe wins the Wooden Award along the way. So that's someone I'm looking forward to watching this upcoming season. Him, and then Iowa State's another team too in this conference where you look at what they're bringing back and some of the transfers they got in the portal as well. Like they're going to be another team that's going to be really threatened within this Big 12 conference. It's why it's really tough to pick in this conference. I think it's really there's not much separation from top to that one team to the sixth team in my opinion. Houston right now is the team to beat, but there are other teams in this conference that I really think could give them a run for their money at the end of the season. So I'll leave it at that. But it's a conference I'm looking forward to watching this upcoming season, as well as the other conferences. And we'll go into our next one. Let's go into the Big Ten. Um,
Yeah, let's
I,
go
I
into it.
I think this is another big conference that has a lot of potential. You obviously talk about teams like Purdue and what they bring to the table. What more can you really say about what this team is going to bring back? You bring back Braden Smith, who right now is the preseason favorite betting for the Wooden Award winner. So you bring him back. You bring back Trey Kaufman Wren as well. You bring back Fletcher Lawyer as well. That's three scorers right there that averaged over at least 12 points or 13 points a game from last season. They bring in a guy that we're very familiar with in Liam Murphy, transfer
Hot
from North
shooter off the
Florida.
bench.
So they have a lot coming into the table. They didn't really lose a lot either from last season's team. And I also forgot to mention Daniel Jacobson, who is a very, very solid center who's still very young in his collegiate career. So they're obviously the team to beat in the Big Ten. Um, but I'm going to give a spoiler now. They're not my team to. I don't think they're going to win the Big Ten. Um, at the end of the day, I have Michigan being the team to beat, in my opinion, in this conference.
I'm so
Um,
glad you mentioned it because Yaxel Lendeberg looks like player of the year. He looks
yeah,
like the real deal. We saw him
yeah,
up close and in person,
right,
literally up close in person. He was 5 feet away from our section
yeah.
during the St. John's Michigan game during the
Yeah, I mean,
preseason.
we literally saw it in person. This team brought in so much talent from the portal. I mean, Elliot Cadeau from North Carolina. You bring in Lendon Moore, as you mentioned, from UAB. Ade Mara from UCLA. I mean, we saw how tall he is. He's an insane height. I think he was 7'3",
He's a
7.
legit. He's a legit 7 footer. Not like I think he's 7'3" maybe, or maybe
Yeah,
7'4". But he's a legit. Every single bit of that is real.
and they don't really lose too much. Obviously, they lose Danny Wolf and Golden from last year. They're two-star centers, so those are big losses. But they do bring back, Roddy Gale Jr. and Namari Burnett as well. So they bring back some talent from last year's team while also adding all that talent from the portal. I really do like what Dusty May has got cooking right now with this Wolverines roster. So as much as Purdue is enticing to pick going into the season, I really do think this Michigan team at the end of the day could get the Big Ten title crown when it comes down to it.
Yeah, and I'm gonna agree with you, and I'll give you like my little analysis here. Lendeberg was an NBA player last year, and it's not gonna change now unless he gets injured. So he had a whole off season where he should be in the NBA, getting minutes on almost any roster there, and he's gonna play a full season of college basketball with a revamped starting cast. So I think it's a no-brainer to pick Michigan here. And Nick, let's go. I'm gonna give you the team, and you're gonna tell me if they make the NCAA tournament or not. So before we do
Okay.
that, I think there's 9 teams that from the Big Ten that will make it. I'm gonna give them a floor of 6. So I would say between
Okay.
6 to 9 teams in the Big Ten will make the tournament.
Okay.
Those floor teams are Purdue,
Yep.
Illinois,
Yep.
Michigan,
Yep.
Wisconsin,
Okay. Yep.
UCLA, and USC. With the teams on the bubble right now, Michigan State, Oregon, and Ohio State.
Is there a reason you like USC that much going into the year?
Uh, I think the I think the analytics kind of favor him. Urza also from Utah is one of the best transfers in the country. He's going to be really big. They're going to have Jerry Easter, which is a big named recruit, probably getting a lot of minutes with him. Rodney Rice, the Maryland transfer, kind of pilfering the leftovers from Kevin World, and Jake McCoffey, another really talented Virginia transfer. So they got some really talented transfers from some good programs that has some good coaching, and you know, they're gonna get the spoils of war here. And I
I
gotta
mean, also
mention,
having Musselman as their coach also helps a lot.
yeah, Eric Musselman's an excellent coach, and I forgot to mention Chad Baker Mazar, the Auburn transfer too. He's gonna get big minutes for him too.
Yeah,
So I think they
yeah,
have a lot of. I think they have a lot of talent from the portal. It's just about meshing at the end of the day.
right. I I'm of the same mindset where I look at the top four, being Purdue, Michigan, Illinois, and UCLA. I think those are the top four teams. I like the Buckeyes going into the season. I think they still have enough to get to the tournament. They missed it last year. Um, it's tough not to put Tom Izzo's team into a tournament. I think you have to give them the benefit of the doubt, even though there's still question marks going into the season. And then you look at teams like Oregon, Wisconsin, even Iowa. You can look at those teams, Indiana and USC. As in my opinion, are maybe the bubble teams in this conference, where you're looking to see what they bring to the table coming into the season. But this conference has a lot of, there's not much room for error in my like when it looks down to it in this conference, where what's at the top. It's up to these bottom. It's down to the second tier teams to try to figure out how can they get themselves into the NCAA tournament, and try to avoid being one of those bubble teams at the end of the year. Because Ohio State, we saw it last year, they were a team that could have made the tournament, and they just had some really bad losses at the end of the season where it cost them a bubble opportunity. So it's like these teams have to capitalize on it at the end of the day, figure out a way to get into the tournament for the upcoming season. So there's a lot of good teams in this conference too. I think this is a really strong conference as well. We're going to be saying that a lot with some of these conferences over the entirety of the year, but the Big Ten brings it to the table.
Yeah, and I love that the preseason rankings, at least analytical wise, for like the bottom teams like Rutgers and Penn State, they're ranked like 85 to like 110, depending on who you ask. Whether it's Ken Palm, the Massey ratings, Bartovic, whatever it is, and I think that's appropriate. I'm glad that they're not, being oh yeah, just because in the Big Ten they're automatically like between like 50 to 70 if they're bad. Like no, like if they're not really going to be great and they lost a lot of talent, especially from last year, Penn State and Rutgers lost almost everyone, so they're being ranked accordingly. So I am a fan of that. And to kind of end that sentence, I am going to be rooting for them if they do turn it around because who doesn't love an underdog?
Yeah, no, no. I mean, you and I both know it. I'm sure the entire world, is the same notion. When he gets to March, you're always rooting for those Cinderella stories. And we'll talk about potential Cinderella stories a little bit later on when we make our potential major surprise for the upcoming season as well. So, with that, let's go into our next conference, Johnson. Another tough conference that you kind of went on a little bit of a rant a few minutes ago about. But let's talk about the SEC. A monster year for this conference last year. They brought so many teams to the NCAA tournament. I doubt we see that again this year, but there is still a lot of talk about this conference going into the season. You, of course, have to start with the defending champion Florida Gators and what they did last season. Of course, Clayton Jr. going off in the tournament, leading the Gators to a championship. But you lose him in the draft. You lose Elijah Martin. You lose Will Richards. You lose all those guys. And what they did what they had to do to try to replace that is very admirable. And what they did, they get Boogie Flan from Arkansas. They get Xavier Lee from Princeton. Did I pronounce that right, Johnson? Or
You did.
did I say that wrong? Okay, just making sure I did. So they get those two guys, of course. They bring in how about Olivier Rowe? I mean, the size of that guy at center. I mean, good luck trying to defend him downside the paint. And then you bring back Condon from last year's team as well. So obviously they lost last night. It does suck for them that they did lose the first game of the season, but they didn't lose to a bad team. So it's not like it's the end of the world for them. They're obviously going to be the team that I think a lot of people expect to be the SEC champion this season. But there's so much good team. There's so many good teams in this conference that I think it's really going to be tough for them to repeat as a champion. You have Kentucky in there. You have Arkansas in there. You've got Alabama, Tennessee. Like those are just some of the noteworthy teams I think are in that same tier with Florida that could win it. And then you have outside teams like Mississippi State had a very nice run of the tournament last year. We saw what happened with Auburn. Last year was a great year, but now, without Bruce Pearl at the helm, what's going to be the status of them coming into the season? You have other bubble teams like A&M potentially. We saw Texas make the tournament last year. Ole Miss, Missouri, Vanderbilt, just to run out some of the teams in this conference entirely. So, who do you have winning it? And what do you think about this conference?
I have Kentucky to win it. They have a lot of talent coming in, and even before last night, like it's very easy to say that after Florida loses to Arizona, but I had it always as a bias towards Kentucky. Mark Pope's an excellent head coach, and he just got better this offseason. Um, I want to say one thing about Xavier Newley. He kind of reminds me a little bit. His game reminds me a little bit of Campaign back at Murray State. Or was it Wichita State? Murray State, right?
Uh,
Campaign's Murray State. Fred Van Vliet is
yeah,
Wichita
I
State.
was gonna look it up because I couldn't remember.
Yeah, no, Xavier Lee, kind of like a similar game
Yeah,
to
Murray State.
Campaign, and I think it's going to be translated really well. He didn't really play a great game last night, but it wasn't really terrible for his first game on a high major team title favorite against a top 10 opponent in Arizona on a neutral site game. Um, just shoot a little bit better, but he handled the ball well, he handled pressure well, but with that being said, give me Kentucky. I can't see this team. I can see this team losing, but they can go far in March. So if they don't really make the SEC championship, I can see them come down the Nets in April.
Hmm. Okay. I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm just gonna take Florida, for the reasons I said before. But looking at this conference, I think we'll go over like how we did the other conferences. Let's talk about some of the teams I think we agree on that are gonna make it. I think we both agree that it's obvious that Florida and Kentucky should make it. Arkansas, Bama, and Tennessee should all make it as well. If I'm assuming you and I both agree on that on those five.
Yes.
Okay. So then I'm gonna list off teams that I think could get in there, and you tell me if you think they will make it or not. I think Mississippi State gets in there.
Yes.
I'm gonna say Auburn still gets there despite losing
I'm gonna
Bruce
say no.
Pearl.
I'm gonna
You're gonna
say
say
no
no?
because I think it's gonna be too big of a gap, and it's really gonna hurt the conference because they were expecting this team to really do damage, and I think they the way they scheduled themselves early on. Now, don't get me wrong, they could start clicking in conference play,
Right.
but would you take Auburn over Houston right now?
No. No.
How about Oregon,
I don't know. That would be
Michigan,
no. Michigan would win that.
Arizona?
For what I saw last night, you have to look at it. You have to think Arizona wins that game.
Yeah, Purdue,
No,
and then Michigan, and then NC State.
maybe.
That's
Yeah,
in
it's tough.
non-conference, Nick. That's in it. So you're gonna get beat up by a lot of those good teams,
Yeah,
and you had an overtime win against middle of the pack Bethune Cookman, legit middle of the pack. I think they're ranked like 190 out of like 365. So at least in Ken Palm, but
yeah.
it's gonna be concerning
It's not like they have
until they get
a
used to
Janai
it
Broom. You know,
to help clean up their mistakes.
they're
This is
right.
a brand new head coach. You're gonna have Tahad Pettiford, who should be one of the premier players in the conference. But I think early on they're going to struggle. They're not going to really get great out of conference wins. And it wouldn't really surprise me if they end up dropping a game to even someone like Chattanooga, like a really sneaky good mid major. It wouldn't really surprise me. So it's going to be very interesting with Auburn because this was a team that this is a conference that took them for granted after being a basketball doormat since Charles Barkley left in the 1980s. And
Yeah.
Bruce Pearl revived this program. And here we are now. But continue, Nick.
What about Texas A&M or Vanderbilt?
I'm gonna say yes to both of them.
Okay. Um, Missouri.
Yes, I'll say yes to Missouri, and I think that's it. Whatever you say from
That's where you
after
cut it
this,
off.
yes. So no Georgia, no Texas,
Yeah, no
Oklahoma, LSU,
Oklahoma.
or South Carolina. So what is that, like 8 teams?
That would be. I'm doing my math real quick.
Maybe 10?
7,
10
8,
teams?
9.
9 teams. Okay. So I can see a 9-bit SEC. It's
Yeah.
realistic. But again, my beef with the latter half of this conference is a team like Auburn. Like they better have an appropriate ranking for them if they start dropping these games. That's all I'm gonna say. Same for the rest of these teams. You got a lot of teams ranked that they're gonna be all quad one wins right now, and if Bomb's conference doesn't really hold up their end of the bargain, you can see a lot of these teams if they start getting beat up on, the whole flow of the conference will get disrupted.
Yeah, I mean, this conference, it's you expect it after what happened last year with all that many teams making it to the tournament. You can't expect to have that duplicated this season. Nine's probably where I think it's probably the ceiling for this conference in terms of getting there, or maybe not the ceiling. I think that's what we could see happening. I think the ceiling maybe would be what
I would say
12.
12.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, because you have Auburn that could maybe make it, but we don't know yet. Ole Miss, I think, is still not out of the question, and then it really comes down to Texas or Oklahoma between those two teams being that quote unquote 12th team in this conference. So yeah, it's gonna be an interesting season. It won't be as big as it was last season for this conference, but I still think there will be some good, there will be some good action from these teams in the conference because they lost a lot of star talent. Let's not sugarcoat it. There's a lot of star talent that was lost from this conference because of the draft and other things, but it still should bring some good action throughout the entirety of the season. So we'll see who wins at the end of the day. And then we'll round it out, Johnson, with the Big East. Of course, for us being St. John's fans, last year was a great ride for the St. John's team, a historic season for us. And they look to try to repeat as the Big East champions. But the biggest story of this entire conference, of course, is going to be them and UConn. It's going to be between those two teams throughout the entirety of the season. Creighton is probably the only team on the outside looking in that maybe could thread in at the top of this conference. But it really comes down to St. John's or UConn that wins the Big East this year.
I'm gonna agree with you, but I'm gonna say Marquette right now because Shaka Smart works best as an underdog.
Okay.
I mean, listen, they're gonna have great players. They're gonna have Ben Gold. They're gonna have Chase Ross, that's back. Rice Parham, who's back again. So they're gonna have a lot of guys returning, step into bigger roles. Um, I forget his name last year. His name escapes me at the moment, but the Cam Jones from Marquette last year.
Yes.
I felt like in times they relied on him too much, and in the games that he performed poor in. It could be better by spreading the wealth, quote unquote. They look good in a win against Albany last night. Again, it's Albany, but they took care of business. You have to look good against these bad teams.
Right. You have to beat
And
who's in front of you. We always say that.
I mean, listen, even a team like Seton Hall, like that's an improvement because Seton Hall's last year's team was horrific,
Yeah, horrible.
and they were able to beat up on a bad team. Sorry, St. Peter's, but this isn't
Oh,
your miracle run anymore. Back to
yeah. I mean,
reality.
Shaheem just beats up on his old team.
And honestly, even a team like Georgetown, which is supposed to be projected towards the bottom of the conference, they beat Kentucky. I know it was a preseason game,
Yeah. No, it has to be.
but
It has to be talked
They
about.
went into Rupp Arena and they beat Kentucky. I don't care if they were down two starters or not. They beat Kentucky, and they beat them by a large margin. And you have a lot of good coaches in this conference. You have Ed Cooley at Georgetown. You have Rick Pitino at St. John's. You have Danny Hurley at Connecticut. We mentioned Shaka Smart. We have to talk about Greg McDermott, whose days are going to be numbered here. He's going to be retiring soon. You have Kevin Reynolds return the seat to Villanova in the Big East, coming from Maryland, and he played a hell of a game against BYU last night. Listen, it wouldn't really
You
surprise me
have
if they knock off some pretty big teams in the
you also got
non-conference.
another Patino in the conference now, and
Yeah, Richard
Xavier.
Pitino going to Xavier. Uh, so we have some really good coaches in this conference that I think will definitely work better as underdogs here. But Nick, I think you're going to take St. John's as your winner here.
I'm just gonna pick them for I think the biggest reason I'm taking them is because bringing back Zuby Ejiofor, I think, is going to be somewhat of a monster difference maker. Because I think one, having him, and then you bring in Bryce Hopkins as well from Providence, like you steal one of your conference rivals' top players who could be a dark horse candidate to be Player of the Year this year. That's a really big get for this St. John's team. You bring back Zuby is one thing, but then you get to bring in Hopkins, you bring in Ian Jackson from North Carolina. We saw how Dylan Darling looked last night, as well as in that exhibition against Michigan. He could be a really fun player for this team as well. Dylan Mitchell has shown some flashes as well for this team. Josiah Sandin as well from Arizona State. Isaiah Sellers from Stanford. They did so much in the portal that you have to be really looking going into the season and saying to yourself, this team has the capability of going back to the tournament, going back to back Big East champions. It's going to come down to can they get past the second day of the tournament, though, or the second round of the tournament. That's where it comes down to. Because last year, as you and I both saw, the biggest problem for this team was their outside shooting. If they can fix that outside shooting this season, the sky's the limit for this team. Like it's
So this is my hot
easily,
take, Nick.
easily big.
My hot take is if they can conquer the motion offense, they will be successful because the outside shooting on paper is fixed. Hopkins is a decent shooter. Sellers is a lights out shooter. Jackson is a good shooter. Sannon's a good shooter. So you have good shooters now that should be on the floor. Even Zuby, he's capable of knocking down an open three pointer. He's not going to light you up, but he can make maybe one a game. And if he can make one a game, that's enough of a threat that you have to kind of respect the spacing a little bit, which will ease up the other shooters. This is the only guy that really, really can't shoot out of like I'm gonna call it St. John's core 7 to 8 players is Dylan Mitchell. But everyone else is either a capable shooter or you can't really leave him wide open. Like you can leave Dylan Mitchell wide open and he's not gonna take that shot. Zuby might at least threaten that shot. He's not gonna do it often, but he might threaten it. But I have to talk about Connecticut because I'm gonna take them to win the Big East here.
Okay.
Again, really great transfers. They got Solo
Yeah,
Ball,
I
which is a
mean,
guy I really wanted.
yeah.
You know, from the get go. I really want Solo Ball. He's great. Not a transfer, but this is a
I
guy I
mean,
really
getting
wanted from
Solo
day
Ball
one.
and Caravan back is just insane for them.
Yeah, but the guy I really wanted from Georgia was Silas Demary, and he was good last night. Really controlled the offense and the defense, and he was capable scoring the ball. He really didn't wasn't able to shoot, but you don't really have to in that system. Jalen Stewart's going to be a big returning player for them. Malachi Smith, the Dayton transfer, another guy I was kind of like, do I want him or not? But kind of after seeing him last night, kind of against New Haven, I'm like, maybe not. But he'll be a big part of that team. But yeah, St. John's biggest offense is going to be most of the motion offense. So if they can just conquer that, if they know how to work it, because they don't have a true point guard. I don't care what Patino says, they don't have a true point guard.
No.
But they would learn if they know how to share the ball well and they can kind of evenly distribute the ball, they're going to be fine. So it's not going to be shooting this year. It's going to be actually sharing the ball because after they had a year with Kadari Richard and Davon Smith, two on-ball guards that really dominated the offense and could really run an offense, you're not going to have that right now. So that's what they really need. But let's talk about the teams from the Big East we think are going to make the NCAA tournament, and let's talk about the teams that could potentially make it. So we're going to start with Connecticut, and St. John's, right?
Yeah,
Those are
those are the two
absolutely two.
definites. Yeah.
And then
Creighton,
I would say one of Marquette or Creighton. I'm not gonna say I
okay.
don't know who yet, but I'm gonna say one of Marquette or Creighton.
I'll give. I would be okay with
I,
saying
I
both of them.
I'd be okay. I'd be okay saying both, but I think as a stone cold lock, I would say one of them. I wouldn't say both of them as stone cold
Okay.
locks.
And then it comes down to what teams do we think on the outside? Maybe Providence is such a weird team right now because losing Hopkins is going to be obviously they didn't have him for the majority of last season to begin with. So I don't know where they go from here. Nova's still like in the weird, I guess, rebuilding stage if you really want to put it like
I
that.
think Nova can make it. I think they
But I
looked
think
really
they could
good
make it too.
against
Yeah,
BYU last night, and
right. They
BYU
played.
looks like almost a complete team. They're gonna
Yeah,
have a bunch of cupcakes, and then they're gonna play Michigan. I know
right.
they're gonna play Michigan away, but here's the thing: you don't have to beat Michigan, right? They have to beat up on these teams: Queens, Sacred Heart, Duquesne, LaSalle, Old Dominion, Temple. You gotta beat Temple, necessary. And then you're gonna have non-conference games against decent teams like Wisconsin and Pittsburgh. You beat Pittsburgh, you beat Wisconsin. If you really lose to Michigan and BYU, they can't really hold that against you. But you gotta beat Wisconsin, you gotta beat Pittsburgh, and then be decent in the Big East. If that's the case, there's Nova's path to the tournament.
Right. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's. I'm not saying it's not a real possibility. I think it could be done. Getting Willard is going to be the difference maker for them getting there or not, because they went through that big stage where with Neptune, they just couldn't get it done. I think getting Willard to poach him away from Maryland, I think really could be the difference of them, being the team that they were last year to being a team that could get back into the tournament this year. So I don't hate it. I could very much well get behind that as well.
But
I don't know if there's another team that you
one
had in
team I'm
there
really rooting against right now is
against
Wisconsin,
it.
because Wisconsin plays Marquette, Villanova, and Providence this year. They might
Mm,
as well be an honorary associate
damn,
member of the Big East this
associated.
year.
Yeah,
But yeah, I'm gonna
yeah,
say Big East should have 3 teams at a minimum, and I'm gonna say 7 as an absolute ceiling. I would say probably closer to 4 or 5 guaranteed.
yeah.
Anything
I don't
less
disagree
than
with that.
3, you have to have a meeting with. If you have 4, it's like, all right, you have a down year. 5 should be the norm. I think it's gonna be St. John's, Connecticut, Creighton, Marquette, and one of Villanova and Providence. If you can get both those teams in, that's great. But I think one of Villanova or Providence will sneak in there. And I think Xavier and Butler would just kind of be on the outskirts right there. But I do believe the bottom of the Big East will perform well enough this year that a loss to them won't mean the end of the world.
Right.
The poll looked really good last night. Chris Holtman's doing a good job at the poll. He
Yeah.
had him really good last year. He didn't really do that great in conference play because, no, it's Big East conference play, but in the non-conference, he took care of business. He knew his way how to coach. He played close games against Texas Tech. He played a close game against I'm trying to think of who else he played in non-conference there. He played a close game against, I think, Wichita State, which he blew him out in. But this year, I know again it's Chicago State, but you got to look good against these bad teams. If you don't look good against these bad teams, it's a problem. And this schedule is very favorable. I really think DePaul can beat Northwestern at home. I think they can beat Georgia Tech on neutral court. They can beat Wichita State again. So if they have a good non-conference, it's going to raise the whole profile of the Big East, and that's going to be the same thing of Georgetown and Seton Hall. We're not looking for these teams to make the tournaments. We're looking for them to take care of business against teams like Dayton, Clemson, Maryland. Take care of business in non-conference. That's going to be the key this year for these
Right.
lower teams. You really need St. John's and UConn to do a lot of heavy lifting. They need the bottom 3 or 4 teams in the conference not to be complete mess ups here.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, this conference, like I said earlier, there's going to be some good competition to see who's going to be the next tier of the top, like that next tier after St. John's and UConn. Because as I mentioned, it's probably going to be a 2-man race for this conference to see who gets the job done. And then you're looking at the other teams to see who's going to be fighting it out to be the bubble team, the teams that make the tournament. Because I agree with you. I think a ceiling of, what'd you say, 7 teams is possible for this conference.
Yes,
Um,
7 at
it
the
would,
absolute max.
yeah, it would take a lot, but I could see a ceiling for 7 being the case for the Big East. It's very possible. Um, so I'll leave it at that, and we'll move on to our next part of our segment, which let's make our pick to see who wins the Wooden Award this year, Johnson. Now, I'm trying to take a look at last year who we picked and see how outrageous it was, or maybe how okay it was. I had Mark Sears from Alabama, and you had Hunter Dickinson from Kansas.
Well, it happens.
Yeah. So who do you have this year?
For the Wooden Award, that's gonna be tough. I'm gonna take Laxell Lendenberg right now. I think he's
Okay.
the. I mean, I was
Third best
not as
odds
big.
right now, I'm seeing.
It is third.
Yeah, it's Braden Smith. This is from DraftKings, not sponsored, obviously. It's Braden Smith, JT Toppin, and Lendenborg is third.
All right, I'll take that. That's not bad.
He's plus 1,000 odds. It's good value.
How about you,
Um,
Nick?
I've been between 2 Big 12 players. I'm between JT Toppin and AJ Dybensa. I'm going to lead towards Dybensa for the value, but I really do think he could make BYU a household name again, like they were in the Jimmer Fredette time and era. I know it probably is going to be a one and done year for him. You have to think he's probably going to go to the NBA draft. Um, but he just brings so much to the table for that team. Um, I really do think they're going to compete with Houston a lot throughout the entirety of the year to be the Big 12 champion. So I'll take Dibansa to be the Wooden Award winner, but I'm really heavily considering as well JT Toppin being that guy too. What about your mid-major surprise for the season? Last year,
San
you're
Diego State. I had New Mexico
oh,
last year, right?
you did.
San Diego State counts as a mid major, right?
Yeah, that does. That does.
It's
But
the
it's a
easy
Mountain
one. It's like taking
it's a Mountain
Gonzaga
West.
right now. Um,
Yeah, not taking. You can't do that.
but yeah, Brian Dutch has done a great job here. I mean, he's been year in and year out. He's great, and they haven't been really like the elite San Diego State that they have been in the past. But I think this is the year that they finally get back to maybe like unfortunately 2020 San Diego State where they won 30 games and COVID happened. So
Yeah.
so
Well,
let's hope that happens. So that does not happen again.
I mean, mine's kind of similar to yours because it's a team that's very, tournament familiar, and they're not. It's not like they're in like the SWAC or the Horizon or some conference like that. They're in the American Conference. I'm going to take Memphis and Penny Hardaway to get the job done as my mid major this season. The big two reasons why I really do like them is the two of their new incoming transfers. A guy that you and I are familiar with, Doug McDaniel. I know last year did not go well for him at Kansas State. I think a fresh change of scenery at Memphis could be the job for him. It could be the guy that we saw in Michigan for a little bit of time. But Aaron Bradshaw, I think, from Ohio State could be the difference maker for this Tigers team. It could really give them a nice run into the NCAA tournament that I think could maybe make them get into the Sweet 16 or something like that. I think Memphis could be a team that people should watch out for this upcoming season. Obviously, things are going well for them in football. I think it can transition as well onto the basketball court as well. Penny's done a tremendous job in the portal trying to get this team ready for the upcoming season.
And Nick, give me your teams to make the Final Four.
Yeah, man, this was another tough one where I had to look and think about it. At the end of the day, if I'm going to pick my Final Four teams, I will go with Purdue. And I'm typing this out as we say, as I didn't type this out prehand. I'm going to go with Purdue. I will go. Hmm. Give me. Probably should you go first. I'll go Purdue. I will go with Texas Tech. I will go with Houston, and I will go with UConn. So I got two. I do have two Big 12 teams in there. I'm really high at JT Toppin though, as you can tell. What do you got?
Yep. Michigan, Houston, Purdue, and UConn.
Okay,
And in my title game, it's going to be Michigan versus Houston with Michigan cutting down the Nets.
Michigan cuts down the Nets. Okay, I've got Houston and UConn as my championship game.
Disgusting.
Yeah, it's not really great. I need to see Kelvin Sampson win a championship, Johnson, because I felt
Yeah, I hear you.
I
It felt bad
he
last year.
right like that was such a bad way to lose last season. And to top it off, it's a guy that it's like you get these guys like here a day, like with coaches wise, where you hate them for a sense. Like some people hate Danny Hurley for a lot for different reasons and stuff. There's not a bad thing you really can't say about Kelvin Sampson and what he's done with this program. He's taken Houston to where they were a bottom feeder in the Big 12 and has made them a nationally ranked team, the number one team in a lot of people's eyes going into the upcoming season, and maybe the betting favorite to win the national championship this season. I want to see them cut down the Nets once, so I'll pick them to make the national championship game and win the national championship at the end of the year. I'm hoping for them. Hoping for them.
Well, Nick, that'll probably cover everything we have right now. Before we sign off, you have anything to say?
Uh, Looking forward to another great year of college basketball. You and I, of course, are going to be in attendance on Saturday for a monster game between Alabama and St. John's. The atmosphere for that should be incredible.
I
Um,
think 16,000 tickets sold right now, just
yeah,
by my estimations.
I'm not
Not
surprised.
official, not
Not
official, but
surprised.
just from what I could see on this on the
And the
Ticketmaster map.
and I can guarantee the UConn game will top that later in the year. That's gonna be
I think St. John's at the Garden will average around 16 to 17,000 people a game.
yeah.
It would
I mean,
not surprise me if they average more, but I think 16,000 will be the floor.
even outside of it, looking at the rest of the college landscape, there's just so much storylines going into the season. A lot of coaching changes, especially in the Big East. You look at what happened in the SEC last year. Can they even remotely duplicate what they did last year? And then you just look at some of these star players coming into the season. Smith, Toppin, Lendenborg, Dibansa, and Darren Peterson, just to note a couple players. Like, those are just some guys that could be so special, like they could lead their team potentially even single-handedly to a national championship for a lot of people's opinion. But I'm looking forward to see how it all unfolds, and see what happens for our Johnnies at the end of the year. Hopefully, it can only be as better as last season for us. Anything you want to say before we wrap this one up?
Go St. John's. I'm hoping for a great season, and I hope I'm wrong and they win the Big East again.
Yeah,
Hope I'm wrong
hopefully.
about the national championship too.
Yeah, hopefully. But yeah, the next time we'll probably be here for college basketball. I'm assuming it's going to be March when the tournament starts.
Unfortunately, it'll be
Yeah,
in March.
yeah, but we'll of course you and I obviously will be checking every scenario, bracketology, and everything like that. Because right now we're still in the busiest time of the year right now. Baseball just wrapped up. We're going to be doing that episode just shortly, so tune on into our next episode here on the All Gas No Break Sports Show. And then we have football to talk about this week, a wild week in college and in NFL as well. So it's going to be a busy week for us here on the All Gas No Break Sports Show, and the next couple of months will be the busiest time of the year. I am very happy to say that. So that's going to do it for this week's edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. The college basketball season has just tipped off, and now we are underway here in the 2025-2026 season. Who is going to be cutting down the nets in March? We'll have to find out in just a few short months. And once we get towards March, Johnson and I will be back here on the show to break down some bracketology, recap the conference tourneys, and see who makes it into the NCAA tournament. For Nicholas Pavone and Andrew Johnson, this has been the All Gas No Break Sports Show. Have a great rest of your week.